prescriptive because it's a very wide and very difficult field, but to try to present only the major challenges in the sense, as I said, of grand challenge. If we address this, we'll open the gates for the success, for future successes. So, some 7 challenges which I consider important, and then conclusion and recommendations, a call to action. Looking into the future has always been difficult. You will recall that one very wise Ethiopian intellectual said, Ethiopia is a compulsive is a nightmare of the compulsive classifier. Ethiopia is a nightmare of the compulsive classifier, and trying to classify health and health care is as difficult as trying to classify Ethiopia. So that will be very difficult. What I will try to do is not try to really predict what the future will be, but to see what the future of what we are doing now, what the future, what will happen to the decisions we are making presently in the future. Therefore, the quote from Drucker. The next year will certainly be momentous for Ethiopian healthcare. And there are a number of measures that we are taking currently that will determine this future. 2, I think, will be very important. Universal health coverage and the Sustainable Development Goals, to which there is global commitment, and Ethiopian government and Ethiopian society are committed to. So how will this fare in the next, I'll try to see how this will fare in the next 30 years. Health is, as I've been reiterated in this conference, is a right and is almost everything. It is influenced by all aspects of life: physical environment, the social environment, social economic environment. As you can see, as I've tried to show, as I've picked from a highly summarized and simplistic presentation of the complex issues involved. It's only a small corner of a very important social movement, healthcare. Within that, a number of factors will affect what will happen in the future. So what I will try to do is to identify what will seem to be very important challenge and how this will fare in the next 30 years. And this in the Ethiopian context, a large country, a very promising country with a long history. As we are all Ethiopians, the cradle of humanity. So in this context, not only this, but with limited data and information. The health information system in Ethiopia is notorious for its lacune. So, one thing we can say is that healthcare in 2050 in Ethiopia will be much more different than what it is today. A lot of presentations have been made on the demographic transition Ethiopia is going to, and whether we'll be ready to to reap the outcomes of the demographic dividends. A number of changes, major changes in technology, in financing, and in behavioral and social aspects. In the context of a country where we have still challenges of yesterday, no access to, no good access to clean water, sanitation, etc. And we will be facing the challenges of new developments, especially in terms of non-communicable disease and injuries. So what will be required is really future thinking in a very complex arena of what has been called the post-industrial revolution or the networking age. Now, in this, as I've said, I will focus on a few challenges. One is really knowing what will be required by 2050, what the healthcare need would look like in 2050. Clearly, there will be an increased population, growing urban population. Repeatedly, we have been told that Ethiopia is lagging on the urbanization trajectory, only 20% today, about 30% by 2050. This will be, this essential is, of course, highly accelerated development in terms of what we have been going through in the last few years. So the challenge will be very important. More people, more urbanized, hopefully better educated, therefore their care needs will be more complex and more demanding. But we'll have the remnants of poverty and inequity, and this will be this will work out in a situation where infrastructural development, etc., will be very difficult. Today, about, as you can see from the graph, about 50% of Ethiopians still live 5 kilometers away from all-weather roads. I'm saying all-weather roads, not hospitals or health centers. By 2050, hopefully this will be improved, but there will be major challenges. So meeting the future care needs in a very challenging process. Another challenge will be culture, what food called cultural challenge. Ethiopia, as I've been told, is the cradle of humanity. I join all of you in saying that we are all Ethiopians. I'm sure you will realize the context in which I'm reading this, especially coming from Norway. We are all Ethiopians. Well, the good thing about Ethiopia is that we have a long history. We have difficulties understanding how we have been maintained this continuous history of statehood in the context of highly challenging world environment, but we have survived and we will continue to survive. Because Ethiopia has always, from my limited understanding of the Ethiopian complex context, has always been able to accept change creatively and incorporate it. In the last, the post-Italian occupation period has been very difficult for Ethiopia. We know yesterday there have been issues of how modern education has been introduced in Ethiopia and how it fares. So we have challenges, but they are full of opportunities. It's quite a large country, diverse in terms of population and biodiversity, diverse in its culture, And in healthcare, for example, very untapped resource in traditional medicine. I will not have time to go into the details, but so a number of challenges remain. Ethiopia has met most of the Millennium Development Goals, but two have not been met. One is gender equality, and the other is maternal mortality, among others. And this shows the context in which the challenge will have to be addressed. Tradition, very important, but the tradition that keeps us from moving forward should be. So we have harmful traditional practices that should be tackled. For example, in terms of healthcare, the fatalism and female genital mutilation, early marriage, etc. So big needs in the context of a very complex and very traditional society, which we'll have to make 5 minutes, okay. So designing solutions for this will be quite difficult. One important in terms of, for example, design challenge will be financing. Ethiopia, to date, healthcare financing accessibility is very limited. Financial accessibility, our GDP compared, for example, to a number of countries, for our neighbor in Kenya, or the best in Africa, is very low. As you can see, per capita of about $30. We have a large way to go, and not only that, most of our health care currently depends on external donor support. And we'll have to, in spite of the fact that Ethiopia at present allocates quite a substantial amount of its budget relatively compared to other countries, for example, as you can see from the graph, there is a lot of challenge in terms of financial. There is there are major challenges in terms of leadership, especially at the local level, at all levels, but especially at the district level. It has been called a crisis. I'm not going to the details, but so what will be required will be, and I hope the picture I put there will not be incongruous, but I think it shows that the kind of challenge we have at the district level. Quite a cry. So what we'll have to see very deeply, and there is a major workforce crisis. Ethiopia, we have the World Health Organization puts the threshold for achieving the threshold for achieving the Millennium Development Goals, especially the maternal and child healthcare issues at 2.3. Ethiopia had only 0.5 per thousand. Now that has been raised. So there is that Ethiopia has a major workforce health crisis is well recognized. And to achieve that, we have gone into a number of initiatives, including flooding, tax shifting, etc., which have continued to certainly improve some of the situation, but also created a number of other in terms of quality and in terms of sustainability. Since this conference is promoted by engineers, I have had to look into technology. Technology certainly will move the healthcare system in Ethiopia. As you can see, there are thousands of new apps coming out every day on all aspects of healthcare. I'm not going into the details. The challenge will be how to manage this so that it will serve the healthcare system of Ethiopia. There are a number of challenges regarding safety, ethical, ethics, confidentiality, etc. The motivations behind the development, very important to be led by. But the motivations and the developments are quite, highly disparate and highly, in terms of clearly controlling them. As you can see, we are at the tail end of the Global Innovation Index, so we'll have to adjust to the challenge and try to leapfrog, as mentioned yesterday. Now, in terms of conclusion, the going will be very difficult. Ethiopia, in the last 70 years, post-Ethiopian Italian occupation, has made tremendous achievements in terms of health care, from you can see, from where we have started and where we are now. But what remains is are very, very high, highly complex and rapidly evolving and in a globalized world. So we will need visualization of the future that draws lessons from other countries, continually visit our own visions, and adapt flexibly. The main issue, the prospects are brilliant. We can achieve a lot of things. Unfortunately, the Amharic fiddle has been changed there. What I was trying to say was Yichalal. We can do it, but it would be complex, it would not be easy, but it could be done. And thank you.